It's that time of week again. It's the March and Silva MMA show. And today is probably one of the most important shows that we're going to have all year round. We're talking about UFC 267 and UFC 268 today. And it's probably going to be a quite long episode. So if you're tuning in now, make sure you strap in and get something to eat, get something to drink, because we're going to be talking for a little while. Yeah, as I said before, I'm joined once again by Oscar. So how's it going over there?
It's going really good. When you dedicate yourself to being an MMA fan, these are the kind of pay-per-view cards that you dream of. Fights in Madison Square Garden, fights in Abu Dhabi, where we have moments that we will remember for the rest of our lives. I believe that these two events are just everything we hope to see when we turn on a UFC fight. So very excited about the moments we had last Saturday and the moments we will definitely see this Saturday. Let's dive right into it. My goodness, the 42-year-old Glover Teixeira got it done against Jan Blachowicz. Deep down in my heart, I was rooting super hard for Glover Teixeira because this is such a classic underdog story. The guy has sacrificed so much. In fact, he was set to be in the first season of The Ultimate Fighter, but just could not get that visa. Had to wait a little bit long. And his 22-fight win streak was eventually snapped by John Jones. And for a moment there, it looked like he wasn't as motivated, not as disciplined. And we were just counting him out. We were questioning his durability constantly. And he just kept on being an underdog, and he kept on getting the win. And for some reason, we continued to doubt him. And both of us picked against him, but he still pulled it off. It was a classic Glover Teixeira fight. But this time around, he was dominant in the first round. He gets a takedown, and Jan Blachowicz does not want to get up because he does not want to risk getting Glover on top. And in the second round, we actually see Teixeira rock Blachowicz. We really thought it would be Blachowicz that would be the one doing more damage on the feet, but Teixeira beat the fight out of him, and then eventually got what was a very easy rear naked choke. Jan Blachowicz tapped very quickly. As I said, Teixeira just beat the soul out of Jan Blachowicz. Super impressive, especially at 42 years old. What a moment, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was fantastic. And as you mentioned it looked like it was easy for Glover to get him down, get that grappling started. And it seemed like Jan Blachowicz was already admitting defeat when that rear naked choke went in. He looked like he was ready to tap, even though it wasn't in. And then as soon as a little bit of pressure, that was it. And all credit to Glover Teixeira, man. This guy is an absolute legend inside the sport. 42 years of age, and he's champion of the world, UFC light heavyweight champion. It's crazy to think, if I'm doing half as good as him at 42 years old, I'll be happy. And this man is an absolutely living legend. And it's just such a fairy tale end to a story that will be replayed in mixed martial arts for 20 years, 30 years to come. And man, this guy's a future Hall of Famer for 100%. And I'm so happy to see him get it done. This is the sort of fight that you don't want to see anyone lose. And unfortunately, someone had to. And Glover Teixeira put on a fantastic performance. And what's coming in the future for Glover Teixeira is potentially Lyra Prochazka.
Oh, yeah, Lyra Prochazka was just on the MMA Hour. He said he's fine with waiting. You saw the UFC show Lyra Prochazka on the broadcast when Glover Teixeira called him out. And once Glover Teixeira said, "I need a little bit of a break," you saw the frown on Lyra Prochazka's face. The guy is probably going to have a year-long layoff, and I don't know if that will benefit him. But nonetheless, a lot of people are just once again looking over Glover Teixeira, which how are you not going to learn your lesson by now? I'm actually picking Glover to win that fight, but we'll preview that fight next year when the time comes. But this was such an awesome moment, such a legendary moment. This reminded me of Michael Bisping winning the title back in the day, because this was somebody that you had seen take a couple terrible losses, quite frankly, and you were thinking they're just never going to get to the top, really. But man, he had every reason to just give up, to doubt himself, but he refused to do it. He refused to take no for an answer, and at 42, he got it done. The oldest first-time UFC champion of all time, Randy Couture, of course, won the heavyweight title against Tim Sylvia at 43, and Glover Teixeira maybe could be the oldest champion of all time in the future, but we will have to wait. That's a really tough competitor coming his way. Yeah, such a legendary moment. I will never forget this. And it's amazing to see somebody make so much sacrifice, finally reach the pinnacle of his career. He was greeted by one of his idols, Big Nog, as he walked out of the octagon. You saw how proud he was. Amazing, just amazing all around.
Yeah, as you mentioned there, it was a moment that I will never forget inside of MMA. It's just such a fairy tale end. It just seems like this is a movie and we're living in it and we're watching a movie, and it was incredible. All credit to Glover Teixeira. You know, he did what he had to do and he got the win. But yeah, the future's bright for him now, and he's got a tough challenger waiting in the wings, and a tough young challenger waiting. So let's see how he deals with that. You say let's not write him off, but man, it's so hard not to when he's facing like someone like Jiri Prochaska. But when you see a performance like that, you know, it's just difficult to root against him.
Yep. And we said this was an amazing moment. And in the co-main event, we had an amazing back and forth fight. This was pretty much as advertised, exactly what I expected. A super competitive fight that went all 5 rounds. And this did receive the fight of the night bonus because it was so high level and both guys had unbelievable output. Corey Sandhagen is one of the highest output guys of all time. You see right there, he attempted 449 strikes. That's absolutely crazy. Both guys have tremendous gas tanks, and I think this was kind of a classic 5-round PDon fight. He can take the first round off, and that's how good he is. He can afford to take a round off against some of the most elite fighters, and he can make the reads, and later on he'll take over, and he has a power edge against pretty much anybody in this division. This guy hits like a darn truck, and I believe that was the difference maker in this fight. If you see the striking numbers round per round, Sandhagen actually outlanded him, but as I said in the preview, it would not matter because Jan is landing the more impactful shots. You see all 3 judges gave only 1 round to Corey. The first round, I actually give round 2 to Corey as well. But the scorecards don't really tell a story of the fight. It was super competitive. But of course, the biggest moment of the fight was the spinning back fist that knocked down Corey Sandhagen. Pure Jan is just so impressive. And I have to be reminded that this was an interim title fight. This looked every bit like the legitimate undisputed title fight, did it not?
100%. And if we're being real here, it probably was for the real title fight, and even Joe Martinez thought it was for the real title. And if you're Aljamain Sterling right now, you're probably wanting to vacate that belt. As I mentioned last week, whoever wins, Peter Yan is probably the most dangerous man in the bantamweight division. If not, probably, as I mentioned, the most dangerous man in bantamweight. I'm struggling to get my words out here, but yeah, Peter Yan is phenomenal, and he put on a hell of a performance. And so did Corey Sandhagen. There's not like shooting wise down, but he put on a fantastic performance. And this is his first title shot. He's going to be back 100%. These two will meet once again in the octagon, whether it's in a year's time or 2 years' time. They're definitely going to meet, and it's going to be a different fight that next time around. Peter Yan put on a phenomenal performance. His boxing is so crisp. His speed of his punches is ridiculous, and how accurate he is. And as you mentioned, he could take the first round off because that's how good he is. He could take that first round off and then make his reads, and then the second, third, fourth, fifth, he starts to warm up and just gets better and better. As soon as the rounds go on and on and on, he just gets better. I would love for this to be the first 7-round fight inside the UFC. It would have made sense.
Yeah, both guys look like they have the gas tank to do it. But I do think that Peter Yan is tailor-made for 5-round fights. Because you saw in the previous 3-round fights, he was doing serious damage, sometimes finishing guys. But you could tell that if those fights were a little longer, he would finish guys. And that's what he did against the likes of Jose Aldo. And on his way to doing it to Aljamain Sterling. But there's no doubt in my mind that he's going to demolish Aljamain Sterling when they fight next year. I'm very looking forward to the proper coronation of the undisputed champ, Piotr Yan. But no shame in Sandhagen's game. Keep your head up, man. That was amazing stuff. You want to talk about an amazing performance now. Islam Makhachev, he did what I expected him to do, but he did it even quicker than I could have imagined. This is the quickest finish Islam has had in a very long time, and he did it against the number 6 lightweight in the world. Everybody's always complimenting the UFC's lightweight division, and the number 6 in the world could not even go 3 minutes with Islam Makhachev. That has to be a wake-up call for a lot of the Islam doubters, because I saw a lot of people picking Dan Hooker here, and I never really gave Dan Hooker a chance in this fight because the gap was so big on the ground. This was the most dangerous grappler that Hooker had ever fought, and when you get taken down right in front of Habib and Javier Mendez, and Islam Makhachev is on top of you, you got a feeling that your night probably won't be too long, will it not?
Yeah, 100%. As you said, it is the Makhachev, the most dangerous grappler that we probably have inside the lightweight division. And he backed up with this fight, and what a phenomenal performance. And he got it done quicker than I thought. I thought maybe around 2, man, around 3 stoppage via submission. But he just went in there and just he smashed him, and he went in there, got it done within 2 minutes and 25 seconds. It was a phenomenal performance. I finally enjoyed it. The sky is the limit for Islam Makhachev, and as I said in the last about Glover Sierra, I feel like this is a movie and we're watching it. For Islam, I feel like it's the same. I feel like we're in his world and we're just all part of it.
100%. The thing with Islam Makhachev, he's always been this good. He really has been, but it's all about dealing with the bright lights under the UFC banner. That's what his teammates are saying, that he's always been capable of this, but you see in the Thiago Moises fight that he can finish that fight a little quicker, but it's all about the mindset. Habib always stresses that this game is 80% mental, and I think he's referring to Islam Makhachev, because I think Islam Makhachev could have performance just as good as this every night, but if he puts everything together, especially upstairs, I think he's going to be unstoppable, and I think he could be one of these really dominant champions that breaks a ton of records, like the GSPs and the Demetrius Johnsons. That's just how good I believe this guy is, and I think he might be one fight away from a title. I believe the right matchup right now is number 3, the guy on a 7-fight win streak, Beneil Dariush. That would be an excellent grappling fight, and I think that's the fight to book right now.
Yeah, I think that's the fight that makes the most sense at the moment. They're both now they're free. Islam Makhachev coming out, this fight, unscathed, very short. Maybe we could see it before the end of the year, but I don't know whether. Oh, actually, that's probably not going to happen. But maybe the start of early next year. I would love to see that one go down. But yeah, I think that one definitely makes the most sense at the moment.
All right, we'll move on to Alexander Volkov's unanimous decision victory over Marcin Tybura. We have a lot of good fights to talk about on these cards. This is not one of them, let's be honest. I was very unimpressed by this performance from Volkov. I feel like he could have done better. He's done much better in other fights. And also with Volkov, he's fought 5-round fights quite comfortably, but it just appeared that stuffing those takedowns really messed with his gas tank, because halfway into the second round, he's huffing and puffing, looking like he's in the 4th round of a fight. And I was just very unimpressed by both men here. Tybura, his game has been very reliant as of late on getting the takedown. And once he couldn't get it here against Volkov, you see right there, 16 failed takedown attempts. The Volkov takedown defense held up. Tybura couldn't get one because Volkov has put on weight so big. And tired him out. Volkov had more output. That's basically the story of the fight. Was not super eventful. Doesn't really boost Volkov's spot in the division. It just helps him maintain it.
Yeah, he's in such a weird position right now, and I think he said he came out that he's going to wait for the division to play out a little bit more, and I think that's the correct call. He can't beat the likes of Blades, the Ngannous, maybe a Lewis. That would be a good matchup. They have fought before, so a rematch would definitely be on the cards.
Yeah, the guy I picked for Volkov is Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Both guys are in the same spot. They have been tested against the upper echelon competition, and they clearly cannot beat them. But they're always going to be a proper test for the guys hoping to break into the top 5. That's what I believe is the proper fight to book.
Yeah, that's a good fight. A Blade and the Rosenstrike recently coming off a Blade's unanimous decision, I believe.
Yeah, yeah, that was a tough loss for Jairzinho Rosenstrike, but yeah, when you put when you really look at the top 10, I think that is what makes sense right now. And we'll move on to quite possibly the biggest star on the entire card. We had a 42-year-old to win the light heavyweight title in the main event. And if you look at the numbers, he did not have the biggest moment of the night. Hamza Chimaev had the biggest moment of the night. He ragdolled Li Jingliang. He demolished him, he smashed him, and eventually he left him unconscious in the middle of the octagon after a brutal rear naked choke. I cannot be more impressed with Hamza Chimaev. This was a better performance than I could have dreamed of for Hamza. This is exactly what I needed to see. Hamza Chimaev getting a win over somebody in the top 15 and doing it in very dominant fashion. What did you think of Hamza Chimaev's performance, and has your ceiling for him increased after this performance?
I was very high on Hamza Chimaev before this fight, but I feel like this was the fight that really tells me a lot about Chimaev, and oh my god, he exceeds my expectations. He goes in there, submits him in 3 minutes and 16 seconds against. And if you look at the striking stats of Li Jingliang, he doesn't even land a strike. Yet again, a fighter doesn't land a strike on Chimaev. It's ridiculous. He is literally. I tweeted out as soon as he won this fight. I said, Khamzat Chimaev is literally a cheat code. This guy is incredible. He's the people that can only match him in this division is Burns, Colby Covington, and Kamara Usman.
Yeah, I believe that as well. He just has unbelievable strength, unbelievable aggression, and he's just so positionally wise. He knows how to get guys in the position to finish them, and he does it very quickly. I'm very impressed with this guy. I believe that it would not be the craziest thing in the world if Kamara Usman beats Colby Covington and he calls for Hamza Chimaev right away, and we see that fight happen. That's how impressive this thing was. I think that is definitely in the realm of possibility. Although Hamza Chimaev is calling, and the UFC may be interested in booking him against Nate Diaz. Yeah, that would be the right step next. I think Hamza Chimaev destroys Nate Diaz if they fight. But yeah, Hamza Chimaev is on a rocket ship right now. I think he could be the biggest star in the UFC in a year's time.
100%, I agree. The way he picks up Li Jingliang, what was it, in 10 seconds and just walks him across the octagon and tells Dana White, the boss, to get off his work phone to watch the fight. It was incredible. This guy's got such a charisma, a great personality about him, and he's tailor-made to be a superstar in the UFC.
Yeah, and he has a skill set to back it all up, and cannot wait to see what is next for this guy. And you want to talk about another guy with an impressive performance who has a super bright future. Magomed Ankalaev dominated Volkan Oezdemir pillar to post. This was the best Ankalaev could do besides get a finish here. He did score a knockdown against Oezdemir, and hurt bad. I thought he was going to get a finish. And I was just so impressed with the Magomed Ankalaev here, because I actually thought this would be wrestling domination on Ankalaev's side. We both said if this stays on the feet, maybe Oezdemir could win here. Maybe he has a little more volume. No, this was a kickboxing match, and Ankalaev just dominates this fight. Volkan never gets going here. Only one judge gave a round of Volkan. I don't know what they were seeing, but really, really awesome performance from Magomed Ankalaev here. I think he's one fight or two away from a title shot now. And I personally think he will be the one to beat Glover Teixeira next year. And I think he's going to, just like Islam, and just like a lot of guys on this card, I think they're going to be long-time reigning champions.
Yeah, there's a lot of Russians that we have coming through in the UFC roster right now. I feel like there's going to be we had Habib, but I really feel like there's a sort of Russian takeover happening in front of our eyes. We got Peter Yan, Ankalaev, Chimaev. We just got a phenomenal roster of Russians that are coming through right now. It's a phenomenal market, and the USA really looked into it. And it's paying its price, because now look, we've got some phenomenal fighters. As you mentioned there, I think Magomed is a top 3 fighter in the world right now. What's next for him? I'd probably match him up with Dominic Reyes. I think that one would make sense next. But this is quite. It's hard with Ankalaev, because the people in front of him he would beat, but who would fight him?
Yeah, honestly, I think a guy that would definitely take the fight is Thiago Santos. Thiago Santos just beat Johnny Walker a couple of weeks ago. Thiago Santos would be a super dangerous matchup. Of course, the guy hits like a darn truck, and I truly believe Ankalaev has a serious edge in that fight. But hey, in my opinion, I think he beats anybody in this division. That's just
Except from Paul Craig.
What?
Except from Paul Craig.
Oh, Paul Craig. Yeah, Paul Craig was able to get it done there, but he's improved leaps and bounds since then. And the future super bright for him, and would not mind to see that matchup right now. But Paul Craig's probably waiting for Gustafsson, and we did not have to wait too long to hear somebody walk out to Island Boy, Ariel Helwani's favorite song right now. Even though Verna Jandiroba lost the fight, she was forever immortalized on the MMA Hour wall, and that's all that matters here. But what did matter to Ribas here was rebounding after a loss to Marina Rodriguez back in January. And there was 100% a scare at the end of the first round. She very clearly lost the first round, but she did get knocked down in that first round. And that's very alarming, because I really never rated Jandiroba striking that much. Ribas is not super durable, but hey, she still fought through it, and she very clearly won the next 2 rounds. And come the third round, she was the one tagging Jandiroba bad with a head kick. We saw Ribas overcome some adversity early and just take over in this fight, and she was clearly a better striker the longer the fight went. And you could see that her takedown defense has improved as well. 7 takedowns stuffed against Jandiroba, who actually was able to take down Carlos Esparza twice.
Yeah, it was. This is the important fight for Ribas. As you mentioned there, she had to rebound in this fight, and this, I feel like, if she didn't win this one, her confidence would have just fell to the ground. And she went in there, she did what she had to do, and she won 2 rounds out of the 3. And this was an important fight, as I mentioned. She's a big character as well. She's a lovely woman. When she gets on that mic, she brings that energy, and she's phenomenal. But yeah, this is a big fight for Ribas, and she got it done. And I'm excited to see where she can go in the future. But as you mentioned, getting knocked down by Jandiroba, who we didn't really rate the striking of, very alarming. But I feel like this is things that she can work on and definitely fix.
Yeah, 100%. There's always room to improve. And we'll move on to the next fight. We saw definite improvements from Zubaira Tukhugov. Khabib recently posted on Instagram that Tukhugov nearly pulled out of his fight, and that's why he was so proud of Tukhugov. He fought through an injury. I don't know what the injury was, but man, you would have really never known in this fight, because he was fighting a really good fight. Ricardo Ramos, he brought the heat early, but eventually it was Zubaira Tukhugov that tagged Ramos. I thought he was going to get a knockout, and Ramos turns things around with a spinning back elbow, the same elbow he landed on Ayman Zahabi years ago. And yeah, Zubaira Tukhugov was just a step ahead on the feet. And I actually picked Ramos to win here. Ramos was the only underdog I picked on the entire card. And it was for good reason, because I thought Zubaira Tukhugov would use his wrestling more. And if you see right there, he did not use it a ton. And therefore, he did not get really gassed like I thought he would on the feet. He was just miles ahead. Very impressed with Zubaira Tukhugov. He's making improvements, and I think his ceiling is now higher than it once was.
Yeah, I was just reading through that Khabib post that you were mentioning. He did say that his team persuaded, this is in translation, persuaded him to postpone the fight, and then Khabib was complimenting his endurance and spirit and ability for this high fight, for the high standard fight. But yeah, that's crazy. I saw that post with Khabib earlier. I kind of skimmed through it, but yeah, fighting with an injury and still putting on a good performance against Ricardo Ramos, who's a tough challenger for anyone. And as I mentioned, this Russian takeover is happening in front of our eyes, and we're all here to witness it.
Yep. And we'll talk about another Russian getting a win here. This was the only Russia versus Russia matchup of the night. Of course, after Kazakhstan's Damir Magulov fell off the card, we were left with this. Duraev fought Kopylov here. Awesome fight, straight up barn burner fight. If it wasn't for the co-main event, that was so cool. This fight would have 100% gotten the fight of the night. These guys left their soul in the octagon. They gave it their all. And I was very impressed with Roman Kopylov here as well. As a big underdog, he definitely won this. Wait, no, never mind. I only remembered the first part of the second round where he got that knockdown. I thought Duraev was about to go out, but Duraev makes a comeback, gets on top, and does serious damage. Nearly gets a stoppage, but Kopylov stays dangerous in his fights. He always stays dangerous, but eventually the wrestling and the stand-up here by Duraev was very impressive too. I was thinking this was going to be wrestling domination by Duraev. It was not on the feet. He kept things competitive, and he actually banked the first and the third round for sure. Very, very impressive stuff from both guys. Don't write either guy off after this. And yeah, not as impressive as I thought it would be for Duraev, but a really good test for him, especially after being kind of fed to easier guys on the Contender Series. This is what I needed to see. This guy's now 100% battle tested, is he not?
Yeah, 100%. As you mentioned, this is what we needed to see in his career. Moving forward, a fighter, potentially, when you're young and you're hungry and you're trying to get into the UFC, you always need to be in these sort of fights. And I feel like for moving forward, Duraev, I think this is a very valuable experience, and he's going to definitely learn from this. And moving forward, I feel like this is going to make him improve as a fighter, and he will definitely be better. Not better, but not make the same mistakes as he did in this fight.
Yeah, 100%. Because when you're picking fights, sometimes you don't know how a guy will react when he gets hit, or when his opponent makes things dirty. And yeah, we saw him overcome that. And if you want to talk about dirty situations, my goodness, the referee in the fight between Eliseo Zaleski dos Santos versus Benoit Saint-Denis, maybe one of the worst referees we've ever seen. In the second round, Zaleski dos Santos did what I thought he would. He hurt Benoit Saint-Denis really bad. There was a very clear striking advantage in dos Santos' side, and he basically got a finish in my eyes. Benoit Saint-Denis was not defending himself intelligently. He was very clearly concussed, and the referee was not even considering stopping the fight. He just watched like we were seeing a 1-2 combo, like it was no big deal. He really didn't care to stop the fight. He was taking basically the Drago approach to this fight. If he dies, he dies. So very disappointed to see, and very happy that Mark Ratner assured the officials that there would be no more officiating by the referee later that night. So impressive performance by Alexio Santos, but ultimately overshadowed by horrible reffing, especially in that third round, right?
Yeah, I agree. You said that he did get removed from his fight, which was meant to be Magomed Ankalaev versus Volkan Oezdemir. Off the top of my head, I think I remember. But yeah, I'm glad they took him off that. And in my opinion, I think that's the last time we see him inside the UFC. I think Dana White is very high on referees, and if they make mistakes, it could be one and done. And I think that's the last time we see. I forgot his name, but I feel like this is the last time we see him inside the octagon, inside the UFC. And but man, he was, unfortunately for Dos Santos, he definitely took his shine away from the fight. And it was a good performance. And if there was a different referee in there, he would have won by stoppage in the second round.
100%. That was my pick originally. A second round stoppage for Zaleski dos Santos, but did not play out that way. And I was already disgusted, sick to my stomach in the second round. I was thinking this guy may be risking his life going long in this fight. And when the third round comes around, the referee made an even worse mistake. Benoit Saint Denis says, "I can't see." And he doesn't even call a doctor, and that was even more egregious. So that some of the
And then
worst
he takes the
refereeing,
point away.
yeah, some of the worst refereeing you'll ever see. Also, a fake nut shot too, just disgusting. And I was also very disappointed that Benoit Saint Denis' corner never considered throwing in the towel. Very disappointing. It appears that they don't care about their fighter. Let's be honest. And Benoit Saint Denis probably better suited at lightweight, as he stated. So yeah, I look forward to Benoit Saint Denis' next fight. I hope he takes a long time off. And yeah, that guy's a true warrior. Good performance by Zaleski dos Santos. Another good performance here. One of the two underdogs on the card that got it done. The first underdog was Glover Teixeira. Second underdog was Michal Oleksiejczuk. He was fighting an undefeated Russian killer in Shamil Gamzatov. He's 14-0 coming to this fight, and he fights Michal Oleksiejczuk, and he gets steamrolled, just clipped and put out very quickly. Super impressive for Michal Oleksiejczuk to have such a great performance here.
Yeah, this one caught me off guard. I thought Shamil Gamzatov was going to get this one done. We both did, actually, I believe. And Michal just went in there, as you mentioned, just landed that one big shot. A little bit like what we saw last night with Justin Burlinson in the Contender Series. But yeah, man, what a phenomenal performance. A fantastic punch that put the lights out and quickly ended the night quick. And maybe, Gamzatov wasn't warmed up, wasn't ready, and caught him off guard. Potentially what happened. But yeah. Fantastic punch, ended the lights out, and took his O away as well. He was undefeated, and now Michelle took that away.
Yeah, I think Michal deserves a step up after this. When you're starching 14-0 Russians in Abu Dhabi, you deserve a step up. Super impressive by Michal Oleksiejczuk, the steamroll undefeated guy. Moving on to somebody else that got a tremendous KO, Lyra Murphy. On any other card, really, he gets a bonus here, doesn't he? In the first round, he gets dominated for 4 minutes. And come the second round, on the first takedown attempt, Lyra Murphy lands a flawless knee up the middle and puts Americani in the shadow realm. Unbelievable stuff by Lyra Murphy here. And, of course, he's got stuff to work on, but, man, unbelievable KO. One of the best of the year, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%, and it was the only clean KO of this card. And do I thought he felt like any other night he probably would have got a performance bonus, as you were saying. But man, he said on the it might have been on the Hawani show after his fight. He said if this was what did he say? Being so low down. And getting a knockout like this is so unfortunate, because when you're cards like this, this big magnitude, it's so much harder for him to, so much harder for all these fighters to get a bonus. And you got to feel for him. I felt like this performance, this knockout, definitely deserved a bonus. If there's, as we mentioned, if this was on a different card, he's definitely get handed a bonus. But what a performance from Lyra Murphy. I mentioned it last week, one of the real prospects that we do have coming out of England, probably the highest prospect we have coming out of England. And I feel like now it's time for him to crack the top 15, top 10. I think he gets a shot at that now.
100%. I think he does. I think he's belonged there a long time. He actually has a win over somebody that was placed higher on the card. He beat in my opinion, he beat Zabira Tuhuo. That was a draw. I didn't score 10-8 for Zabira in the first, but nonetheless, he is undefeated. He's unbeaten, so cannot wait for his future. We'll move on to Andre Petroski's finish of Hu Yaozong in the third round. A lot of people were picking Hu Yaozong to get it done late. Everybody always talks trash about Petroski's card. They always say he gasses and this and that. But I told you guys, you may be gassed, but you can still be an effective fighter. That doesn't mean you're not an effective fighter. You may slow down, but your opponent is right there with you, and that's what happened here. Petrosky got the third round arm triangle. I'm shocked that we didn't see a submission early in this fight. Petrosky had so many submissions in deep. I thought it was over on many occasions. Yao Zhang is pretty tough. He's now falls to 3-3. I'm pretty sure the UFC will cut him after this. And Petrosky once again silencing the doubters and getting a third round stoppage. Hopefully they stop doubting his abilities in the third round after this. This is a really talented grappler who I feel has a lot of room for improvement.
Yeah, as you mentioned, this is probably the last time we see Yao Zong inside the UFC. And Petrosky, as you mentioned, there's a lot of room in improvement, especially that cardio, as we mentioned. Even though he was gassed, he was still, effective, as you mentioned. Even when you're tired, you can still do the basics, and I feel that's what Petrosky was doing in this fight. He was still getting it done with his wrestling, and Yao Zong just had no answer for the takedown. And as you mentioned, Petrosky's very, very young in the game, a lot to improve on, a lot to move forward. He will look at this fight, and he will definitely know what he has to work on for his next fight.
Yeah, and we were talking about guys that will fight hard even when they're tired. We'll talk about that later with Dustin Jacoby. But we got to move on quickly to this fight, the first fight of the night. This was a really fun way to start the card. Tagir Ulanbekov, one of Khabib's teammates that got a win on this night. In fact, they all sweeped. I did a poll on my Instagram a couple weeks ago asking if Khabib's teammates would sweep. About a quarter of the people said no, and they were certainly silenced. Here, Tagir Ulanbekov is super talented, and he fought just a gnarly BJJ practitioner in Alan Nascimento, always threatening the submissions. This was more competitive than I thought it would be, but Ulanbekov eventually got the win here, and he just continues to have very impressive top control and submission defense.
Yeah, it was a good fight for Tagir Ulanbekov. Shall I call it? But before this fight, at the weigh-ins, we wouldn't have known by then. But he did miss weight, and I believe he missed weight.
Did not miss weight. It was Demir Magulov. Demir's Magulov missed weight. Hamza
that's the one.
Hamza Chimaev missed weight for a little bit, but Ulanbekov did not miss weight.
Yeah, my mistaken. I thought it was Tugir. That was the fight that got.
Yeah, Demir is Magulov. Yes.
Yeah, so Ulanbekov, they did what he has to do, as you mentioned, and 12 minutes of control time in a 15-minute fight. Wow, it's just phenomenal, and his wrestling was the story of the fight, and he got it done. And Nascimento was always game though. He was always on the back, throwing up them submission attempts. I was very impressed with him on his back. He was always his submissions were always he wasn't staying still. He was always active inside the guard, and a tough test for Ulanbekov, but he came through it. And nice to see Nascimento. I would like to see him come back for a fight. Not as they give him a fight that he can be, have some be a favorite in, should we say?
Yeah, 100%. I believe that your guy Jake Hadley would be the right fight next for Alan Nascimento. I think that would be super competitive and very fun. And if you want to talk about fun, UFC 268, Usman versus Covington 2. I cannot contain my excitement for this card. This is, oh my goodness, this is so stacked. Pull up the card. Here we got the main event, Kamara Usman versus Colby Covington. Co-main event, Nama Yunus versus Zhang. This is a rematch as well. And the featured bout between Gaethje and Chandler, that is going to guarantee violence, no doubt. And so will Burgos and Quarantillo. That thing is flying under the radar. And I believe those two walk away with Fight of the Night bonus. Frankie Edgar, hoping to make a comeback against Marlon Chito Vera. And the guy that beat Adesanya twice in kickboxing, Alex Pereira, fighting Andreas Michailidis. Quinn is back. Phil Haas, Shabazian. Are you kidding me? This is an amazing card. Let's dive right in. We'll go straight to the main event. Kamara Usman facing Colby Covington for the second time. It's been 2 years since their first fight. And since then, we've seen Kamara Usman beat Jorge Masvidal by unanimous decision, completely dominant. After that, he knocks out Gilbert Burns. And after that, he knocks out Jorge Masvidal, who had never been finished via strikes in that fashion before. So we've seen very clear improvement for Kamara Usman. He's fallen in love with the boxing, fallen in love with the jab ever since he moved over there with Trevor Whitman, who only has 3 athletes he works with. That's what I like about Trevor Whitman. He's not at one of these super camps working with like 30 guys at once. You really can't focus on them that well. No, all 3 of his athletes are on this card. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? We don't know, but hey, it's a nice experiment, and it's very clear to me that Kamara Usman is very confident. This guy's calling out Canelo. His confidence is at a peak. He's really feeling himself. I think Kamara Usman is on his way to being one of the greatest of all time. His UFC winning streak is only lesser than Anderson Silva's legendary 16-fight win streak. I think Usman is going to be one of the greats when it's all said and done. But Colby Covington is not going to be an easy fight. The first fight was super competitive. I actually thought Colby Covington was up before the stoppage, but after proper reflection, I actually think that that the 5th round would have determined it. And as we saw, Usman did get a knockdown in the 5th, and that would have decided the whole fight right there. I did not agree with the stoppage, but yeah, the difference maker here is that Kamara Usman has a serious power edge here. I think the power will always be on his side. And the problem with Colby Covington is we've only seen him fight once. Since then, it was against Tyron Woodley. And let's be honest, that win has aged like milk. So how much of a chance do you give to Colby Covington here, who's only fought 1 time since Usman? And we've not seen him make the improvements that Usman has.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I feel like Colby Covington is a tough test for Kamara Usman, but if not probably the toughest test Kamara Usman has in this welterweight division, set from the Swede Hamzat Chimaev. I think Colby Covington and Kamara is it's like looking in a mirror between these two. They're so similar and so equal ability-wise, but since that first fight, we've seen leaps and bounds from Kamara Usman in his striking. That Trevor Whitman bond, that how they've worked together. As you mentioned, he's fell in love with striking, and he has a right to fall into his love to striking because his striking is looking elite, he's looking top tier, he's looking good. He knocked out Jorge Masvidal. He finished Gilbert Burns. He's on a roll at the moment, and I feel like we're going to see another finish in this fight, and I think it's going to come in the hands of Kamara Usman. I think he gets this one done, and I think he gets this one done more with less controversy in this one. We talked about the stoppage, the nut shots and all that sort of stuff. I feel like Kamara Usman really puts a stamp on this fight. I do believe this is Kamara Usman's toughest test in the welterweight division, but I think he goes in there, puts on a hell of a performance, and gets this one done inside 3.
Yeah, I think we'll see very clear improvements from Colby Covington, and I think we'll see a very different approach from Colby Covington. One thing we were expecting heading into the first fight, we thought this was going to be a wrestling match. We thought those two were going to go out there and wrestle, but we did not even see one takedown attempt throughout 24 minutes. So this fight will be a very, very different fight once you put wrestling into it. And I believe the first guy to shoot will be Colby Covington because he tasted that Kamara Usman power. I don't know if he wants to taste it too many times again. So I believe Colby will be the first man in UFC history to take down Kamara Usman. I believe he'll be the first man to put Usman on his back. Usman has never been put on his back, which is insane in 20 fights. And I think Colby does it. But you got to be crazy if you didn't think Usman gets right back up and Usman takes down Colby as well. Rafael dos Santos actually did take down Colby. So I think these guys will trade a couple takedowns. But at the end of the day, Colby will get a taste of that power, the Nigerian Nightmare power, and I think he'll get his face jabbed off. Colby Covington says he is working on his head movement. How quick can you prove that, really? And eventually, I think that the power will just be too much, and Usman will knock him down and get some good ground and pound going. I say he finishes him in the 3rd round, and he does it in emphatic fashion. And who knows, he could call out Hamza Chimaev, could call out Leon Edwards, something like that. But I think this is going to be an exciting finish for Kamara Usman, and I think his momentum is only going to get larger and larger.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. The only way Colby Covington wins this fight is if somehow he gets this one to the ground and manages to suck that lactic acid out of Kamara Usman's arms and taking him into real deep waters. But we saw Kamara Usman in deep waters against Colby Covington in the last fight. And I just don't see Colby Covington being able to hold down Kamara Usman if it does get to the mat. I feel like Kamara Usman's strength, yes, they compete at 170, but Kamara Usman is bigger. He's big. He's huge compared to Colby Covington. If there was a 165 division, Colby Covington is tailor-made for that division. Kamara Usman is huge, and he's expressed his interest to go up to 185 pounds, but unfortunately his mate, Israel Adesanya, is there being the champion. And he said he would fight him for good money if the UFC offered it, which is crazy. But I feel like the size of Kamara Usman, the strength of Kamara Usman will be a factor in this fight. And as you mentioned, the power will also be a huge factor. I see Colby Covington taking him down, but I don't see Colby Covington being able to hold him down. And Kamara Usman will get straight back up and jab his jaw, straight back to the first fight.
Yep, 100%. Very excited for that fight. The press conference should be super entertaining as always. We got the Trump family in attendance here, and I think they'll have frowns on their faces when the night ends. And we're moving on to the told you so fight of the weekend.
Because you already know who I'm going for. That's why.
Rose Namajunas is Lenny's favorite female fighter, and I'm picking her to lose against Weili Zhang. You might call me crazy because Rose Namajunas did not even need 90 seconds in the first fight to put Weili Zhang unconscious, leave her dazed and confused. But Weili Zhang, if you've seen the Countdown show, she specifically looked at that KO many times. She looked at what she did wrong, and I got a feeling that she's going to have a very different approach in this fight. I think she's going to do a lot of leg kicking, and I think she's going to threaten the takedown and get a couple. Sure, Rose Namajunas got really good BJJ, but the wrestling defense is good as well. But Weili Zhang is very, very physically strong. She's a phenomenal athlete. I think she can get a couple takedowns here, get a little bit of control time. Do I think she dominates on the ground? No, not at all. But the threat of it could make a little bit of a difference here. I think this is going to be a competitive 5-round war, to be honest. And Rose Namajunas, she looks very good early in fights, but after seeing that Jessica Andrade fight, man, I just don't have the same confidence in her because she got tagged bad. She got her nose broken. Her eye was looking very bad after the fight. And we saw what Weili Zhang did to Jessica Andrade. Weili Zhang is an absolute beast. And I think she does have the power advantage here. Rose did not take any really clean punches from Weili in the first fight. And I think she will be hit with them this time around. Will Rose win the first 2 rounds? Yes, but I think later on, I think Weili takes over. It's probably going to be a split decision, but I will pick Weili to win here. I think she makes the proper improvements. I like the fact that she has gone to the Fight Ready camp with Henry Cejudo and Davison Figueiredo. And it looks like she's just changing a lot of things, improving her game everywhere. I think it's going to be enough, to be honest.
See, if it wasn't Rose, I'd probably agree with you. I just, that first fight, yes, no 2 fights are always the same. That's why I'm not predicting a finish in this fight. I see Rose Namajunas being too sharp in the first 3 rounds, just beating Weili Zhang to that punch. But if you look at the first fight, the instant takeaway, obviously, it was how good Rose Namajunas is on the feet. One, she can mix up her kicks very well. She's very diverse. But what you could take away was you mentioned leg kicks, and Zhang. If you looked at the first fight, that was the story of her game in that first fight. But she didn't get time to get it going. She was landing that kick inside effectively in that first round, and it started to look like it was bothering Rose a little bit. But Rose just landed that picture perfect kick, and I do agree with you that I believe Zhang will come out heavy with them leg kicks. She'll come out a lot. A lot of volume, and we could see Rose Namajunas, a little bit in trouble, maybe complaining about the leg a little bit, seeing a little bit of limp. But I just see them first 3 rounds. I think Rose Namajunas will be a little bit too quick, too sharp to the punches. But we've seen Rose Namajunas slow down in fights, and I feel like the 4th and 5th round will be Zhang's round, and we've seen Zhang in a high level fight. Against Joanna Jędrzejczyk, where they just went toe-to-toe war, and it was phenomenal. We've seen Rose Namajunas in that sort of fight, but I think Zhang has the cardio advantage in this one, and I feel like she can take her to the doghouse. I feel like Zhang can take it all the way to the end, but I feel like the first 3 rounds Rose Namajunas would take clearly.
Another thing here with Rose, you really don't know what her mindset is coming into a fight. You're never sure. You're never sure coming into a fight. And if you're picking Rose, that has to be worrisome because you never know what's going on in her mind. Sure, she's got to have confidence, just won the belt. But, man, she is undefeated in rematches as well. It's a very tough fight to pick, and Vegas has it at a pick-up right now. There's no favorite. There's no underdog here, and that might be the right pick here, but I will side with Li Zhang in the end, and I'll pick her to win via split decision. Moving on, the fight that guarantees violence, Justin Gaethje, the highlight, fighting Michael Iron Chandler. This is it, guys. This is it, guys. These guys are going to put on a really good fight as long as it goes. A lot of people are picking this to be fight of the night. I disagree, not because it will be a boring fight, because I think Justin Gaethje gets a quick KO here. I think we won't wait too long to see Gaethje land another of those pitch-perfect backflips. I think Gaethje here, I think he gets a quick KO here. Want to know why? Because Michael Chandler himself, he goes for quick KOs in fights as well, thus leaving himself open to be knocked out himself. And that's what happened when he fought Charles Oliveira. Let's be honest here. Charles Oliveira, not the most powerful guy out there. Not the most powerful guy out there. His technique, very good. Very good. He definitely has improved in that department. But when you're talking about raw, God-given power, Justin Gaethje is your guy. Khabib has said on multiple occasions that out of everybody he fought, Gaethje hits the hardest. And when you just got knocked out by Charles Oliveira, I think Gaethje 100% puts you out. Both guys, I believe, will test their chin in this fight. And it's very obvious to me that Gaethje has the better chin. The only times he was stopped was against Eddie Alvarez, by strikes, I mean, was against Eddie Alvarez and Dustin Poirier. Does Chandler have the power to put him away? I think he does, but honestly, I think Chandler will leave himself open. I think Gaethje gets a quick KO here. I don't think we'll see much wrestling. A lot of people are making a big deal about they're both guys having wrestling backgrounds. I think Gaethje just knocks him out quick before we ever get to see it.
Well, you kind of made me go straight into my pick there. I see Chandler taking the wrestling route in this one. I think Chandler, he says there's a lot of talk about, being violence, and they've been hyping up this fight that they're going to entertain for the fans. But I think Chandler's saying that to get Gaethje to think he's going to stand and bang with him. And Chandler said whoever connects first is going to win the fight, which is phenomenal. But this fight is tailor-made for performance of the night bonus. But I think Chandler's playing a little bit of a game. It really wouldn't surprise me if we see Chandler exchange, and then the first exchange he shoots, because Chandler is a phenomenal wrestler, and I believe he has the wrestling advantage over Justin Gaethje. We've seen Justin Gaethje being taken down by Khabib. Yes, Chandler is no Khabib, but if you look at the wrestling exchange between Chandler and Kamara Usman, Oh my god, it's phenomenal. One of the best wrestling exchanges I've ever seen in my life. And I believe Chandler will be able to take down Gaethje in this one. And I think it will come early if it does. And I think he just does it just to give Gaethje another look, to give Gaethje something to give just be more worried about. And that's where I see the overhand right come into play. And hit Gaethje on the chin.
Man, that would be absolutely crazy if we see Gaethje just go out cold here. That would be straight up madness. I don't think that'll happen. We talked about Petrosky being an effective fighter even when he started, even when the fight is not entirely going his way. I think that's what happened here. If the fight is elongated, that's a big if in my opinion. I think he could counter those wrestling shots with the leg kicks. We've seen Chandler's perennial nerve go numb before. And I think Gaethje may be the hardest kicker in the division now that Edson Barbosa isn't there. Habib says he kicks like a mule as well. So, man, there's a lot of danger in the fight for Chandler. I don't think he has the durability to get done. He's been knocked out before on multiple occasions, especially by Patricio Pitbull back in Bellator early in the fight. That was beyond the year, but nonetheless, I think Gaethje gets it done. And he does get a title shot. The winner, Poirier Oliveira, cannot wait to see that. And yeah, awesome stuff.
Awesome. From one barn burner to another barn burner. Yeah, you said this. We talked about this before we went on there. You said this is your fight the night pick. Shane Burgos is Billy Cornelius. This is tailor-made to entertain, surely.
Yeah, all I have to do is applaud the UFC matchmakers, Mick Maynard and Sean Shelby, for putting this together. This is a dream fight in my book. Shane Burgos has one of the highest outputs ever in UFC history. This guy throws strikes just for the sake of throwing strikes. And he's fighting Billy Quarantillo, who's known for weathering the storm. He might be the new Darren Elkins, guys. This guy will eat your shots early, and later in the fight, he will make life miserable for you. He'll just overwhelm you and eventually finish you. He's actually my favorite Contender Series fighter of all time. He on his Contender Series appearance, he was able to finish. Why is the name slipping me? This guy beat Makwan American. Yeah, Kamuela Kirk. He knocked out Kamuela Kirk on the Contender Series, and since then he's 4-1 in the UFC, with the only loss being to Gavin Tucker, who's an absolute savage on the ground. And he's fighting a guy in Shane Burgos, who I believe has a wrestling and grappling disadvantage against Billy Quarantillo. I think that's a clear advantage for Billy in this fight. Billy is super aggressive everywhere, and so is Shane. But I think the power for Shane Burgos is going to be the key to getting the win here. Because, as we said before, Billy always relies on his opponents tiring out and him taking over late. And that's going to mean that Billy will be taking damage, and I don't think that's a good visual for the judges. Shane Burgos did lose his last two and took a ton of damage in those fights, but Billy Quarantillo hits nowhere near as hard as Edson Barbosa and Josh Emmett. So I think this is a good fight for both guys stylistically, but at the end of the day, when these guys are swinging in the middle of the octagon like I expect them to do, I believe that Billy Quarantillo will be the one doing more damage. And both guys are unbelievably durable. They're just insanely durable. That's why I think this goes to a judge's decision. But a finish is very realistic here. I will pick Shane Burgos to win via unanimous decision. But, man, it will be a straight-up barn burner. We're going to see a lot of blood. And both guys, I think, will be household names that people are going to be talking about this fight when it's all said and done. It could be fight of the year for all we know. That's how good I think this fight will be.
Yeah, this is a phenomenal fight, as you mentioned. This definitely has the makings of being a fight of the year contender. Shane Burgos is never in a dog fight. He always drags it to a dog fight, and that's why everyone always tunes in to watch him, because he's always making an entertaining fight, and you just want to tune in because he's a phenomenal fighter as well. We've seen it in his last fight against it was Edson Barbosa in his last fight, weren't it?
Yes, it was that delayed KO. Very weird.
Yeah, he suffered that, it was, as you mentioned, that delayed KO. And I can't remember how long ago that was. And
that was That was in May, if I'm correct. That was about
May,
5 months
June.
ago.
So 5 months, he's probably had time to recover. He's probably feeling good. But I feel like the recent loss of Shane Burgos is going to really push him in this one. Probably, sorry, as you mentioned, he's no slouch. He's a phenomenal fight. He's beat some good names, and this is a right fight for both men. A good step up for Billy Q, and a drop. No, obviously no disrespect to Billy Q, but a drop in skill level wise. But I wouldn't say, I'm not saying Billy Corten isn't good, but the killers that Shane Burgos has fought recently, if you list their names, it's incredible. And this is the good fight for Shane Burgos. And as you mentioned, I feel like the durability of both men is going to come into play here. This one's going to be back and forth for 15 minutes, and I feel like Shane Burgos is going to get the better of them, of the exchanges, and going to get the better of the judges' scorecards as well.
I'm very happy that the UFC put this on the main card. Originally, we were going to have Jermaine Duranamy and Aldana, and I believe Strickland and Rockhold. Those fights unfortunately fizzled, but now we're very blessed to have this fight on the main card where it belongs. Because I was I really felt bad that this fight was going to get buried in the prelims, because that's kind of what happened with Michelle Pereira and Nico Price. We knew that was going to be a fun fight, and it was, but it kind of was forgotten about because it was buried on the prelims. And as we said before with Lyra Murphy, there's less chance for a bonus when you're on the prelim. So to see this on the main card showcase is awesome. And what's crazy, it's one of many great fights on this main card, and we'll move on to another one. Frankie Edgar is back at bantamweight. He's fighting Marlon Chito Vera. A lot of people are seeing this as a right step up for Marlon Chito Vera, a good fight to set him up to get into the top 10. I don't see it that way. Frankie Edgar is the underdog of the UFC. He's one of the constant underdogs. Everybody always counts this guy out. They say he's too small, doesn't hit hard enough, this and that. And Frankie Edgar still has a record of 24-9-1. This guy still finds a way to get it done. He's an absolute legend. Beat BJ Penn twice by unanimous decision in his prime. There's not enough good things I can say about Frankie Edgar. He has not been as durable as he once was. Of course, he got knocked out by Corey Sandhagen, Korean Zombie as well. A lot of people just forgot that he beat Pedro Munoz in a 5-round decision. That fight was very competitive. I did score it for Pedro Munoz, but it was super competitive. Very competitive fight. And Frankie did not slow down. And Marlon Vera, he does very well against opponents that slow down in the third round. You want to name Andre Ewell, Davey Grant. He likes to punish opponents late. And he learned the hard way when you're fighting higher level fighters. They're not going to slow down. Fought Jose Aldo, got his back taken, controlled for 4 minutes. Against Davey Grant, he did get taken down. And Frankie Edgar's just such a good wrestler, man. Such a good wrestler. Could we see a Frankie Edgar, Jeremy Stevens moment in this fight? If you remember last time Frankie fought at Madison Square Garden, he got head kicked by Jeremy Stevens. I thought the fight was over. And Frankie Edgar gets right back up, takes down Jeremy, and starts ground and pounding them, hoping to finish the fight. I think there could be a moment where Marlon does some serious damage here, but I think Frankie Edgar can hang with Marlon Vera on the feet with his boxing, and I think he gets the takedowns here. Marlon Chito Vera has always struggled with the wrestling. I think this will be no different. I think this is kind of going to be a Frankie Edgar, Yair Rodriguez situation as well, where you're seeing the young guy being expected to beat the old guy, and it's not the time for Frankie yet. I'm not going to give up on Frankie yet like these other people are. I'm picking Frankie Edgar as the underdog to get this done via unanimous decision. Are you?
Yes, I agree with you. And as you mentioned, I think it's the wrestling is going to be playing a massive factor in this fight. Will we see Edgar in trouble? As you mentioned, yeah, probably at one stage. I believe Edgar would get knocked down. But people thinking, well, has Edgar's chin gone? Yes, he's been knocked out in his last two against Corey Sandhagen and then the Korean Zombie. But man, Edgar is known for his durability, taking shots and coming back. We saw it in the Gray Maynard fight. This guy can take a unhuman-like amount of punishment. It was just in the Corey Sanhagen fight. It was just one big shot, caught him clean, and it was a big knee down the middle. It's the end of the story. You cross it out, and then you move on. This is what Frankie Edgar's doing, and I feel like Frankie Edgar, this is a sensible fight that the UFC have booked for Edgar. It's a winnable fight for both men, but I think Ed gets this one done. And I think he's going to use his wrestling experience to control the fight.
Yeah, Frank Edgar's 2 recent knockout losses, besides Corey Sanhagen, they were at featherweight to Korean Zombie and to Brian Ortega. Those are featherweights, and this fight is at bantamweight, where guys don't hit as hard, i.e. Marlon Vera. Marlon Vera really never been legit, like one-punch KO guy. He really has to put together combos. It's usually a cumulative damage. I'm thinking he can do that kind of damage to Frankie. That's why I'm picking him. We'll move on to a guy that has dished out a ton of damage in both kickboxing and his short MMA career, Alex Pereira. He's making his UFC debut against Andreas Michailidis. I cannot wait for Alex Pereira. A year ago, he made his way over to MMA, and he's been wrecking guys, having brutal KOs. This guy has legitimate one-punch KO power, and he's kind of been given a favorable matchup here against Andreas Michailidis. As you see right there, left hook, that left hook. I think that left hook gets him the win here. He did lose his last kickboxing fight, but we're talking about one of the best strikers on the planet. Glory Kickboxing, in my opinion, if you want to see the best stand-up fighters in the world, that's where they are. And this guy was a double champion, a champion at heavyweight and light heavyweight. And his time at Glory Kickboxing knocks out Israel Adesanya in the 3rd round and also beats him by unanimous decision. So people should have all the respect in the world for this guy. I think eventually he could find his way to an Adesanya trilogy over in MMA. But he has to get past Andreas Michailidis first. I think he gets it done, and he gets it done quite easily. Andreas Michailidis, sure, he has some submission wins on his record. Nothing super impressive, let's be honest. His UFC debut against your guy Modestas Bukauskas, that was a little weird, but I think he would have lost that fight anyway. He's got some good power, but let's be honest, no real threat from the grappling side, and that's bad news if you're fighting Alex Pereira here. And Alex Pereira, in my opinion, should get this done with a left hook very quickly. 1st round. I think he can stuff some takedowns as well if Michailidis tries to. Which if Michailidis has any fight IQ, he's going to go for takedowns. But where's Alex Pereira training that? He's training with the light heavyweight champion, Glover Teixeira. And Teixeira will be in his corner. I'm sure they'll go over the bad positions. And I think he'll have, serviceable takedown defense. Enough for him to keep this on the feet and starch Andreas Michailidis. Do you agree that he gets a spectacular knockout and most likely a performance of the night bonus?
Yes, 100%. I agree. If you're Andreas Michailidis, as you mentioned, the only logical way to beat Pierre is if you take him down. If you're standing with him, you're setting yourself up to fail as soon as you start the fight. And as you mentioned, there's not really a threat from Andreas Michailidis on the ground and the grappling in the aspect. So does he have a chance to win? Pierre, he's been over in kickboxing, hasn't had that experience. He has to do sort of catch up in this one. He's got to learn his wrestling. He doesn't have to learn striking or kickboxing or anything like that because he's been doing that for the last 10 or 15 years. So he doesn't need to do anything like that. He just needs to learn his wrestling and see what is always at the back of my head here. You always talk about this. You got to do catch up, and Pierre has spent his time in kickboxing, whereas Andreas Michailidis, he's been in MMA. He's been training every aspect of mixed martial arts. So he's been training himself to be a well-rounded fighter. Does he, is he better at some aspects than the other? Yes, he's better at striking than he's grappling, but will his grappling be better than Pierre? I believe so, but I see Pierre just having enough in there just to keep the fight standing. And I feel like Piera catches him early before he even gets tired in this fight, because kickboxing and MMA is totally different. We don't know how his gas tank is in MMA. We've seen it in kickboxing, but how would that compare to MMA?
Yeah, the reason that Justin Gaethje doesn't use his wrestling is because it tires him out. That's why he prefers to strike. Teacher Dillashaw, he wrestled his whole life pretty much. He does not wrestle a ton because he says it tires him out. So that's a completely different cardio exercise when you're grappling here. I don't think we'll see really any grappling here. Pereira will roll here, get a tremendous KO, and a performance for the night bonus here. We got to speed things up. We got to move on to the next fight. It's another spectacular fight on the card. The return of Raging Ally Quinna fighting King Bobby Green. I cannot wait for this fight. Usually this would be higher on the card, but this is such a stacked card that we got Ally Quinna here fighting Green on the prelims. And I personally think that the difference maker, as many people have pointed out, is that Bobby Green has been significantly more active than Ally Quinna. Ally Quinna's last fight was in 2019 in October against Dan the Hangman Hooker. He was basically dominated the whole fight and just did not look good at all. And then he suffered an injury and he's been out for a long time. Bobby Green, on the other hand, fought 5 times last year. And in my opinion, he didn't lose any of those fights. He did lose the fight to Thiago Moises, but I thought that was a robbery. And then after that, he returns and fights Rafael Fiziev. And first round's very competitive. Second round, Fiziev very clearly wins. In the third round, Bobby Green goes beast mode, man. This guy lands about 80 significant strikes, just fights at an unbelievable pace. His head movement is on points. And I cannot be more impressed with Bobby Green, especially when he just fought one of the best strikers in the division and beat him up for an entire round. And he's fighting Ally Quinna here. Man, I just don't think Ally Quinna has what it takes to beat Bobby Green, who will be in his face the whole time. I think he has a higher output here, and if he wants to, he can take things to the ground as well. I think Green wins this fight via unanimous decision. Not to mention Quinna's ring rust has to affect him, and he did not have the most impressive win streak heading into the Khabib fight. Sure, he did very well in the Khabib fight, stuffed some takedowns out in the open, but that was short notice on both sides. I think if Khabib had a full camp, he'd probably destroy Quinna a little better there, but knockout wins over Diego Sanchez and Joe Lozon, not super impressive. And the win over Kevin Lee as well. I believe he always had Kevin Lee's number, but I think Bobby Green's just a bad matchup for him, honestly, with the high output.
Yeah, this is excuse me, sorry. It's been a long time coming for Rage now. He's been out of the game for a very long time. I'm just glad to see him back inside the cage and against Bobby Green as well, which is a fantastic matchup. The UFC definitely knew what they were doing with this one. This one's going to entertain two of the most entertaining guys that we have probably in the lightweight division. And Bobby Green always brings the fight, and Ally Quinna is never going to back down from a fight. So I'm very looking forward to this one. I think Ally Quinna is striking very underrated. I think he has very good striking. His jab is very crisp. He snaps it to the nose, as we saw in the Kevin Lee fight. His wrestling, his defensive wrestling is good. We've seen that also in the Kevin Lee fight, and I feel like he will just get the better of Bobby Green in this fight everywhere where the fight goes. Even though you mentioned there, Bobby Green should have won 5 of his fights last year. But I feel like this has been a long time coming for Rage now, and it's finally time to get him back into the win column, and I think he gets it done on Saturday night.
The only concern here would be Bobby Green being a show-off, which he has been in his recent fights. He's using his head movement a little too much and getting hit. That would be the only concern here. But besides that, I believe that Green's output will be way too high. He'll also use his kicks here. He loves using his teep kick. And I think that's going to be a big difference maker in this fight. And it'll be very competitive. And, one of many great fights on the card. We got 7 more fights. We'll try to be as quick as possible. Phil Hawes is fighting Chris Curtis. Chris Curtis got a third-round KO on the Contender Series, and Dana White turned him down. But after Phil Haas lost his opponent Darren Wynn, Chris Curtis steps in on short notice. And for whatever reason, Phil Haas refuses to fight him on short notice. That's a very interesting to me. Maybe Phil Haas's coaches pointing out something to Phil Haas. Maybe you need to prepare for something here against Chris Curtis. The thing with Chris Curtis here is he's a very talented fighter. 100% UFC caliber, should have been in the UFC after the Contender Series win. But he's a welterweight fighting one of the biggest middleweights out there who loves to use his size, loves to use his power. And Chris Curtis as well, not the most durable guy out there. He did get knocked out by Reed Cooper III in the second round. I think I don't think Chris Curtis can take one of these big punches from Phil Haas. In the past, Phil Haas struggled with super durable guys, the Nasruddin Imavovs of the world, the Kyle Dawkises gave him some problems. Also, who was it? Julian Marquez. They gave him problems, but those guys can take unbelievable punishment and keep going. But I think Phil Haas could win a decision here with his wrestling, but I don't think this gets out of the first round. I think Phil Haas makes him taste the power, and he gets a tremendous KO here. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Phil Haas is set up to win this one. I think Chris Curtis is definitely a good fighter. I saw him actually fight on the regional scene at the ex-MMA event. It was what was it? Vic versus he's the Portuguese Andre Fiallo.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. He was fighting that show as well, and he's been away. He's done his work on the regional scene, then got himself back into the big promotions. He fought in PFL. He fought some very tough matchups over there in PFL. But yeah, this is he's going straight into the. I feel like he's going straight into the deep end here, and it's unfortunate that he has to fight Phil Haas. As you mentioned, he's a welterweight, and he's fighting Phil Haas, who's a big middleweight. So it's a tough matchup. He's been knocked out in the past by Ray Cooper, but as we've seen recently, Ray Cooper hits like an absolute truck, and yeah, I'm just very excited to see Chris Curtis finally get his chance inside the UFC. As you mentioned, he stepped in, what was it, 24 hours notice?
Yeah, that's how you know he's a fighter's fighter. And yeah, the positive that came out of it, he did get a UFC contract, even though he didn't end up fighting that night. And also, what I like about this fight, it's a battle between two tremendous big gyms. We're talking about Sanford MMA and Extreme Couture. You are muted, Lenny, just to let you know. Yeah, but I'll just continue. I'll move on. My pick is Phil Haas by first round KO. And we'll move on to Edmund Shabazian versus Nasruddin Imavov. This card is ridiculous, guys. This fight is awesome. Edmund Shabazian, his momentum was completely stopped in its tracks when he ran into Derek Brunson, who's been shutting down every prospect these days. Blonde Brunson is not to be messed with. And he's fighting another prospect in Nasruddin Imavov. But that's the thing with the UFC. The UFC is not going to give you a break. You might run into a train, and they'll give you another train to run into. And I think that's what's going to happen here. Nasruddin Imavov can definitely hang with Edmund Shabazian on the feet. I don't think Edmund Shabazian has the cardio or the grappling game to give Nasruddin Imavov problems here. Edmund Shabazian will win the first round without a doubt. He's a killer in the first round. But once it gets out of the first round, he will slow down. And Nasruddin Imavov has proven to be crazy durable. Wars with Phil Haas and Jordan Williams, who we're going to talk about later. Super durable, great cardio, and he's from Dagestan. So his wrestling is out of this world too. He took down Ian Heinisch. I was very confident that Ian Heinisch would dominate Nasruddin Imavov, but he was the one taking down Ian Heinisch. So I'm very impressed with Nasruddin Imavov. The fight with Phil Haas, if that was a 5-round fight, he destroys Phil Haas in that 4th round. But that's not the case here. I think Nasruddin Imavov knocks out Edmund Shabazian in the third round. I think this is going to be a very fun, competitive fight. But once Edmund slows down, things just fall apart. And he's been finished before. I think Nasruddin Imavov is going to be one of two to do it now.
Yeah, when they made the Imavov versus Ian Heinisch fight, I was very surprised. I thought it wasn't the matchup to make. I thought Ian Heinisch was, too far of him in front of the rankings, and Imavov just shut me down. And it was a phenomenal performance, and he proved that he is, he's legit, as you were mentioning. And against Edmund Shabazian, who we thought could have been the next great a middleweight and still can be. But he ran into, as you mentioned, Derek Brunson. He ran into Derek Brunson, and he paid the price there. And he didn't have a good run in against. He lost.
He lost to Jack the Joker Hermanson.
There we go. You took the words out of my mouth. He lost against Derek Brunson, then he lost against Jack Hermanson. Two very high level guys, and now he's taken a little bit of a step back to Imavov. But Imavov is going to go in there motivated after a fantastic win against Ian Heinisch. But as you mentioned, after the first round, Edmund Shabazian just fades. He fades. It looks like he looks like a shadow of himself in the second and third round. In that first round, he could be the best. He could be the champion of the world in that first round. But the second and the third is what really makes the fire. And I think Imavov survives that first round and takes it to deep waters.
Yeah, 100%. That's going to be a fun fight, and we'll move on to the debut of Ian Garry. He's fighting Jordan Williams. Ian Garry is 7-0. He looks like he's the best thing coming out of Ireland in a long time, and I think he gets a highlight reel knockout here against Jordan Williams. As we talked about before, Jordan Williams had a fairly competitive fight with Nasruddin Imavov, but that was at middleweight. Jordan Williams is a diabetic, and therefore he will always be at a disadvantage in his fight. You just can't perform as well as an athlete while having that condition, unfortunately. And I believe that the weight cuts for Jordan Williams are very bad on him. I just think they're bad for his durability and his performance overall. He fought at welterweight before, and he got knocked out. So he moved back up to middleweight. He wins on the Contender Series against Gregory Rodriguez, starches Gregory Rodriguez. That's a very good win. But after he lost to, Imavov, he moves back down to fight Mickey Gall, who, Mickey Gall will always be the BJJ guy for the most part. But he gets knocked down by Mickey Gall. Mickey Gall, never really known for the power. And he can knock down Jordan Williams. So that was very alarming. That was kind of like the Jandy Hoba Amanda Hebus fight, where like, oh my goodness, they're really not as durable as we thought. So against Ian Garry, who has finished many of his fights via KO or TKO, I think Ian Garry can put together a wonderful combo here and get a highlight reel finish here that's going to have people talking about him like they were talking about the Paddy Pimblets and other rising stars. I think this is going to be a really good debut fight for Ian Garry against a guy in Jordan Williams, he's just not as durable as the division.
Yeah, as you said, you said about there being being Paddy Pimblett, but I believe Ian Garry's like the second coming of Conor McGregor. I feel like this guy is, he's set up to make it in the UFC. He's set up to be a star, and what a perfect way for him to start against Jordan Williams. I feel like this is a fight that he can win. Definitely. Ian Garry in his last fight fought Jack Grant for the welterweight championship in Cage Warriors, and that was meant to be his hardest fight, and he was tested in that one. Jack Grant is a phenomenal fighter, and he definitely got tested in that one. So he had a big learning lesson in that one, and he talked about injuries before that fight, and that affected his performance. But yeah, I feel like he's coming in fully fit. He talked on the Errol Horney show that if you watched that, he came in with a plaster. I don't know whether that should worry you a little bit, but he had a plaster around his mouth.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm sure Jordan Williams.
I don't know whether I'm looking too into it or not, but
yeah, it's just a cut. If it was over the eye, If I was on the eyebrow or that area, that would be a little more concerned. But it just being like on the side of his face or like right by the chin, I don't think that's too much of a concern here. And yeah, as I said, I think I think he's a really good striker. Uh, I kind of feel like he definitely could make some improvements here. I don't think he's going to be the top 15 right now at welterweight. Welterweight's it's a really tough division, but I think he'll slowly make his way up there. And I think he's got definitely star potential here. And getting a KO here will definitely help him on that path.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like this is a fantastic showcase for him, and I think he's going to get it done inside one. He said he wanted to do it quicker than Conor McGregor in his UFC debut, which was, 1 minute and 29 seconds, I believe, or something like that. And he said he wants to do it quicker than Conor McGregor. So expect this one to either go quick or 15 minutes. He always likes to get it done. He's won most of his fights via knockout or ground and pound. 5 of his wins have been finished. 2 have gone decision. His first win was decision, and his very last win against Jack Grant was also decision. So I feel like this one's going to be a very high-paced fight, and I feel like it's going to be a very quick and entertaining first round. And it wouldn't surprise me if we see a knockout in the first round, and I think it's Ian Gary getting that knockout.
Yeah. One fight that will not be quick or as spectacular will be John Vellante against Chris Barnett. I think this will be a classic, super sluggish heavyweight fight. Sean Vellante does not belong in this division. Sean Vellante just got basically out of shape over quarantine, and the UFC is like, hey, you got to take some fights. So Sean Vellante is like, all right, I'll fight at heavyweight. And he's performed terribly at heavyweight. He fought Maurice Green. He was on his way to win the fight. And Maurice Green gets a submission. That's not even a submission. And the guy's so gassed, he just quits. So he doesn't have that much fight in him. And the cardio is just abysmal. And then he fights Jay Collier. I talk so much trash about Jay Collier on the show. And he loses Jay Collier. I just can't. I cannot believe how low of a quality heavyweight Jean Vellante is. And he's fighting Chris Barnett, who, my goodness, this is basically a journeyman in this division here. I don't think he's a UFC caliber guy. He got submitted by Ben Rothwell. Ben Rothwell hasn't submitted anybody in like 6 years. That's how bad this guy is, honestly, I don't believe either guy's UFC caliber at this point. Sean Vellante's last 2 wins were split decisions. John Vellante's on a really bad roll here. Of course, it knocked out Corey Anderson back in the day, but those days are long gone. He now has a 17-13 record. That's very bad. That's not. Yeah, I honestly think this is going to be a sluggish 3-round heavyweight fight. And Chris Barnett's last win was a debuting fighter. He's got over 25 fights and he's fighting debuting fighters. So I think very lowly of both guys, but I will pick John Vellante to win by decision here. I have zero confidence whatsoever. What's your take on this fight? Because I'm not particularly excited for it.
Yeah, as you were saying, this is a fight that it's a typical heavyweight matchup, and we're gonna witness. I feel like a sloppy fight in this one. Chris Barnett is very exciting. I don't know whether you've seen his fights, but he likes to do he likes to do these flips. He likes to do these tricks inside the octagon and stuff like that. But I feel like Julian Vellante is a veteran, and he's just gonna stay, straight faced. He has a good sense of humor. We've seen him on the Dana White looking for a fight a couple times. He has a good sense of humor. He's always funny. But man, I think this is a, should we say, this is probably a pick 'em fight. This is a toss up, flip the coin fight.
I don't know how you can pick anybody in the fight with good confidence. Chris Barnett is a 5'9" heavyweight, and John Vellante, in my opinion, is not a heavyweight at all. He's just out of shape. So yeah, it's going to be about who is less tired when it comes down to it. Unlike most heavyweight fights, I'm not predicting a KO here, but I will pick John Vellante to win. Yeah. Very lackluster decision here. We'll move on to a much more exciting fight. Dustin Jacoby is coming in on very short notice. He's fighting John Allen. After Dustin Jacoby steamrolled, who was it? The dentist. Yes, the dentist turns to. He steamrolled the dentist in the first round. I was calling for a top 10 matchup. I was calling for Nikita Krylov. I thought he was ready for the big boys in the division, but they give him John Allen. So I think John Allen does not belong in there with Jacoby. John Allen is a striker. He's got decent BJJ. Nothing that Jacoby really has to worry about, in my opinion. Jacoby will stuff every takedown that Allen tries, and on the feet, I think he punishes him. I think he steamrolls John Allen here. Sure, John Allen has never been knocked out before, but as we saw in the last fight, when Jacoby is a step ahead of you, he most likely will finish you. And I think he gets a really good finish with John Allen here. I think he's levels above, and John Allen may be in danger of getting cut here. His best win was Mike Rodriguez, but he was on steroids in that fight. Now he's off of them. He's not performed well since then. I think Jacoby gets a really good win.
Yeah, I agree with you. As you mentioned there, I thought a top 15, a top 10 was probably next for Dustin Jacoby, and but he is stepping in this one in short notice. Maybe he just wants to stay active. But yeah, Dustin Jacoby stepped in. What was it? Was it to face Was it Alexei? This one's a bit complicated. This one.
The name.
So John Allen stepped in to face
Alexa Kamer.
Yeah. Yes. And then Alexa Kamer couldn't fight, so then Dustin Jacoby stepped in.
Yes, that's what happened here. Yeah.
Did you mean Steph?
Oh, that was my Amazon Alexa.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can hear that, but
stop saying it. He's not fighting anyway.
But yeah, Dustin Jacoby is definitely a top 10, top 15 fighter. Since returning from Glory Kickboxing, I feel like he could definitely go all the way in the MMA. But I feel like this one he's set up to win this one. I think John Allen is his days inside the UFC are numbered, and I feel like he's going to lose this one against Dustin Jacoby. As you mentioned, it's steamrolled Darren Stewart in his last outing. Got that draw against Iron Kutalaba, and I feel like he's a top. I think after this fight, he gets the top 15, and I think he does this one in a spectacular fashion against John Allen.
All right, I know we said we would breeze through the last fights, but they're so good. There's so much for us to break down. There's not as much tape on the next two fights, so we'll do our best to breeze through them. Melsik Baghdasaryan is back after his first round KO in his UFC debut, and he's fighting Bruno Souza. Melsik Baghdasaryan is such a talented striker. Very good record in Muay Thai, and he's looked very impressive thus far, both in Contender Series and in the UFC. And he's fighting Bruno Souza, who was the LFA champion at featherweight, and not only is he a good striker, he's very talented on the ground as well. Really nasty submissions. But the wrestling is just not sticking out to me enough where I think Melsik Baghdasaryan has to worry about it. So I will pick Melsik Baghdasaryan to win this by unanimous decision. I think he can knock down Bruno Souza a couple times as well. But Bruno Souza is very game. And he's got, in my opinion, the cardio advantage here against Melsik. So I think Bruno could win the third round, but I will pick Melsik Baghdasaryan here. I think he's a very talented striker and just comes at you at angles you don't expect, and very, very powerful head kicks as well.
Yeah, as you were saying, this guy's an absolute killer on the feet. His Muay Thai record is fantastic. His kicks are phenomenal, as we saw in his last fight against Colin Anglin. And this guy, I feel like it's going to be a similar performance for Melsik. I'm going to call him. I feel like this is going to be a similar performance against Bruno. A very tough matchup for him, though. But I think this is a sensible step up in competition that the UFC have put in front of him. But I think he gets it done without any. I think he gets it done without any trouble. But I think it's going to be a little bit harder for him in this fight compared to his last one.
Yeah, 100%. We'll move on to the opening fight of the card. CJ Vergara, who just won on a Contender Series a month or two ago. He's fighting Ode Osborne, another guy who was a veteran in the Contender Series. I believe that CJ Vergara may have had a harder fight ahead of him on the Contender Series had he not finished the fight in 47 seconds. CJ Vergara was able to get a tremendous knee right to the body of Bruno Correa, who was a UFC veteran before. A lot of people were very confident in Bruno getting the win, but CJ just steamrolled him. And one thing I do like about CJ is he's a little younger, so he's of that generation that did not have a base martial art. He did have some karate, but he trained just MMA, straight up MMA, and he did it with man. Why is the name slipping me now? Yeah, it's gone from my head. But one of the tough guys, the guy that was on the redemption season with Matt Serra, he trains out of a good camp. But unfortunately, here I think Odin Osborne is just too much. Odin Osborne is a very talented fighter, but unfortunately, he just fought some very tough matchups. Fought Brian Kelleher, got caught in the booming. He fought who was it?
Manel Cap.
Yeah, Manel Cop gets flying kneed. And before the flying knee against Manel Cop, I thought he was winning the round. He was actually tagging Manel Cop a couple good times here. He's got power in his hands. He's very slick on the ground. And I think he's got better BJJ than CJ. I think he gets that first round on bar here against CJ Vergara. I think not only can he knock out CJ, I think he can submit him. That's gonna be my pick. Do you think I'm overrating Odin Osborne's finishing ability here, or do you agree?
No, I don't think you are. This is a very tough matchup for both people. We've seen CJ. He's a finisher. He likes to finish fights. It's either he finishes the fight or he gets finished. We saw a little bit of decisions in his early stage of his career, but if you look at his record now, he's on a 5-fight finishing streak. And if you know Odin Osborne, I feel like this is a type of fight that he likes. He likes to be in these type of fights. We saw it against Jerome Rivera. He finished a fight that left cross 26 seconds, and unfortunately did get caught in that Brian Kelleher boomertine, as you mentioned it. But he likes to get it done, and he's got multiple ways to get it done. He could get it done with his hands, and he could get it done with his grappling. And it's definitely not out of the shadow realm for him to get it done on the ground. And it really wouldn't surprise me if he gets this one done in one.
Yeah. Also, one thing to point out here: Ode has fought multiple times at bantamweight, and CJ Vergara has mostly stayed at flyweight here. I think Ode has the size advantage here. I think he's got the pop in his punches, and he can muscle them to the ground and get the submission in the first. And that will be one of many finishes on a super entertaining UFC 268. If you thought UFC 267 was good, just wait until this Saturday when the UFC goes to Madison Square Garden and they put on a show. These Madison Square Garden cards always feel a little extra special, don't they?
Yeah, 100%. If you look at the people who have fought in this arena, we're talking about the likes of Muhammad Ali, the greats in combat sport have have graced this arena. And if you're fighting on this arena, you've got to feel that sort of pressure, just feel lucky that you're fighting an MSG. Ian Gary is making his UFC debut at Madison Square Garden. Phenomenal. Dreams are literally made of this.
Yeah, cannot wait for this entire card. We've kept you guys for nearly an hour and 40 minutes, so we'll send it off. Make sure to enjoy these fights.
But before we go, I made a few little notes during the episode, just to quickly cap on before we leave them. I know we've been on their nerves for almost an hour and 40 minutes, but I have 4 notes written down here that I want to quickly touch up on before we leave them. I'm going to call it the notes after podcast section. So the first notes is Kayla Harrison is closer to joining the PFL than the UFC.
What'd you say there?
Kayla Harrison is closer to signing with the PFL than UFC, according to Arawani.
Well, that's not a surprise to me. She's fighting low-level competition for more money. Just makes sense to me from a financial standpoint.
Yeah, so the next one I do have Jake Cuddly. We talked about him in this episode. Has a fight signed, and his quote was, "Can't wait to retire this guy." And so I had a quick look at the rankings, and I thought, who could this be? Who doesn't have a fight? Who is very old? I think they won't give him a ranked fighter. Yeah, so my name was Tim Elliott.
Yeah, that's what I assume as well. Tim Elliott. Tim Elliott just looked unbelievable in his last fight, so very, very curious to see what that fight will be.
Yeah, so potentially Jake Hadley versus Tim Elliott on the line there. Then Stephen Thompson has set to return on December 18th.
Yep. I'm not sure who it is. It is not Hamzat. That's confirmed. He just fought Gilbert. He lost the fight. I believe the right step down is Bilal Muhammad.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. It would be a fantastic fight. And then lastly, but not least, JDS has signed with a boxing management and he targets wins over Joshua, Wilder, Usyk, and Fury.
Yeah, I believe that's just ridiculous. That's way too unrealistic for me. Not only do I not think any of those fights have any chance of getting booked, I don't think he makes it out of the third round with most of those guys anyway.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you on that one. So some interesting facts there, just to top up on. But yeah, it's been a very long episode for us. So we want to love you and leave you. We hope you enjoy the fights this weekend. It's been a fantastic episode. But before we go, Oscar, is there any last words that you have to say to the people who are listening?
Just make sure to enjoy the fights and be grateful for this time in MMA. It's just ridiculous what is ahead of us. UFC 268 and UFC 269.
Yeah, fantastic. I can't wait for the fights this weekend. Make sure you enjoy them and